Hey everyone, today I have with me a very special guest, Erin Moriarty. She was a past editor at College Magazine, and so I'm so happy that she's here with us today. Erin is a born writer. Her penchant for creative communication led one elementary school teacher to call her a tyrant who can write. This passion has led to her other roles in nonprofit, media, and tech industries as a communication strategist, editor, and storyteller. She currently serves as the Director of Communications at the Bell Policy Center, seeking the best way to meet people where they are. A few of her favorite things are breaking news, Oxford commas, and proving people wrong. That's a fun one. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Amanda.
Yeah. Okay. So, wow. Let's go back to your time at College Magazine when you were in school. What did you imagine your career path being?
That's a really good question. So I was at College Magazine back in 2012. I actually graduated early in 2011. And I remember getting my email from College Magazine saying, hey, we want you to be an editor. And I remember exactly what I wrote on Facebook. And I was like, I'm going to be a College Magazine editor, back on the grind, so excited. I was just so happy to have a job to be writing and editing. And that's what I thought I was going to be doing all throughout college. And probably since I was like 5, I just assumed I was always going to be a journalist. And, I got a subscription to Rolling Stone when I was 12. And I just always imagined that I was going to be a writer for Rolling Stone or the Washington Post. I was going to break the news story about whatever 2012, 2014's Watergate is. And that just didn't really happen. And that's okay. But that was always my goal. I always thought that I was going to be a writer, going to be a journalist. There were a lot of paths I wanted to go. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to work in politics. I wanted to work in publishing. I wanted to write a book. I found myself when I was working at College Magazine, also, applying for jobs at the Washington Post and Rolling Stone and trying to work for prominent congressmen and senators. I didn't want to stay in Denver and I didn't want to go back to Kansas. And I had a lot of gusto and thought that all of those were within my reach. I even wrote about it in one of my stories at College Magazine about my search for a job and how in my experience, the entry-level job was gone. I think I wrote in July of 2012 that since December when I had graduated, I had applied for 400 jobs and still hadn't found something that had stuck. And it was rough, but it was a good reminder. It was humbling and devastating all at the same time that these things that I had dreamed of for so long weren't necessarily within my reach, but it didn't mean that they were always going to be. It just meant that the jobs that I wanted weren't the ones I needed at that time. And what I needed was to cut my teeth and pick up some skills that college didn't teach me, like SEO and website management and dealing with shitty coworkers.
Yeah, well, I think you make a great point, which is just right out the gate, you're not going to necessarily get those 1% brands, right? The Rolling Stone dream doesn't necessarily happen right when you graduate from college. They're looking for people that have years of expertise writing.
Exactly.
And it's just at another level. Well, so I love that, like, even with someone with as much energy, as much gusto as you had, putting yourself out there like that, there's still that rejection that we face. But you overcame that. And since then, you've now worked for, ALM Media, SDX Central, Center for Western Priorities, Built in Colorado, Tiger Oak Publications, Boulder Life Magazine, USA Today, and Rooster Magazine. I'm reading this list off for all of you listeners to know that, like, Erin has hustled, and she really put herself out there. When you start off saying it was really tough and you felt all this rejection, looking at how far you've come, how does it feel now?
It feels awesome, especially when I think about how tough it was and I think about those 400 jobs. I think about packing up my apartment from college and getting ready to move back home because I didn't have any options. And then I think about getting that first call that, yes, we want you to come to work. And then I didn't have to pack everything up. I think about how—
Is that for Rooster?
So Rooster I actually worked at all throughout college. It was, when I started there, it was in Rooster Magazine was like an 8-page little magazine rag. That wasn't really much, but it was very fun. It was very beloved in Boulder, where I went to school. It was mostly ads for weed that, and didn't have a super high production quality. But I met someone who said, "Hey, you like to write? Do you want to come on board?" And I gradually worked my way up to being an associate editor, and I worked there all throughout college and for a little bit after. And by the time I left, it was 50, 75 pages, and it was in Boulder, it was in Fort Collins, it was in Denver. And to this day, it is still like the largest entertainment lifestyle kind of magazine here in Denver, in Boulder in Colorado, that tackles everything from like investigative issues to, hey, I took LSD and this is how the trip was. And it's been so cool to see how it just proliferated, and it holds such a special part in my heart, knowing that I was a part of it when it was on this like little paper thin magazine, these little sheets, and it didn't necessarily always have the production quality that it does now, which is amazing to see. And one of the things that I implemented, I did the overheard section when I was there. I was like, we should do this, just like crazy things I overhear it every single day. And that still lives on, and I just love it so much.
Oh, that's so cool. So you're able to have this legacy at this publication. I think that that's so important to apply for opportunities where something's just getting started out or something's really small, because you're going to get to make such an impact, and you're going to get to see that growth right before your eyes. And that's pretty cool.
When I was applying for all those jobs and, working at College Magazine, working at Brewster, looking for, that more quote unquote full-time, perfect real life job. To deal with some of that rejection, I allowed myself, this is so embarrassing, but I don't care because people should probably know. I allowed myself 1 hour when I woke up in the morning to be super morose and just downtrodden, and I would literally cry as loud as I could and sing like "One is the loneliest number," like the 2 lines. I would allow myself to do that for an hour, and because since I had graduated early, I didn't have classes, and I was also working as a nanny at the time, and so I didn't have to go work as a nanny until 2 p.m. So I'd wake up at 6 or 7. I'd allow myself to sing, to cry really loud.
I can see you singing this song. Like, I'm imagining you in your dorm room. It's like all dark, and it's like singing "One is the loneliest number." Could it be any sadder?
No, and why that? I have no idea. And then I got to work, and I just started applying for every single thing. And I mean, I spent 6 to 8 hours just trying to find work until something stuck.
Well, so what was that yes? What was that first yes?
So I can't even credit all of that time crying and applying for jobs. The mom I actually worked for, nannying, helped me get a job with the Center for Western Priorities, which was at the time a startup working on conservation issues here in Denver, but it's a startup nonprofit. And the mom that I nannied for had told me that she knew the person who was going to be the executive director, and they kind of just needed someone to come in and be kind of like a project assistant, start from the ground up, just kind of help get things together. It's good for an entry-level job, she said. And she put in a good word for me. I applied. I met for coffee with someone that she, the person that she had a personal connection to. She vouched for me, and they said, "Hey, we want you to come start. You're going to start July 17th. And I think it was like 5 days after I wrote the article about how I had applied for 400 jobs.
So you're telling me, okay, and I'm not surprised by this, but this is like, you're telling me that it wasn't that you applied for something through a post and then you got the job. It's through these random interactions, through people, through connecting with people. The woman that you nannied for. Guys, this is how you get a job. It is not you and a computer sitting down and connecting to a job. It is you and other humans.
Right. It had nothing to do with how long I wrote my cover letter. It had nothing to do how well designed my resume was. It had everything to do with me sitting down and having coffee with this person and being like, "Hey, I just really want a chance. Like, someday I want to do what you're doing." The person I met with, he was the communications director for Senator Bennett's campaign here in Colorado a few years before. And I was like, "I want to do what you do someday. Like, I want to learn from you. Like, I want to get there, and I had also joked with him. I was like, "There's only so many times you can apply to the Denver Post before you have to pivot." So, it was just being at the right place at the right time and actually being able to connect with someone and say, hey, give me this chance, which I feel like was the reason why I sang One is the Loneliest Number for so long, because I just felt like I never had a chance to tell someone I can do this if you give me the space to try.
Mm-hmm. And you going in and saying, I want to be where you're at, it shows that you did your research. It shows that you know what they're doing. And it also shows that you are driven and you're aspiring to something bigger than whatever the role is currently. That goes a long way.
Absolutely. And in my role now and in previous roles, I've started conducting a lot of interviews. And my biggest pet peeve when people come in is when they clearly haven't done any research about the organization or about what our mission is. And it shows, like, if you want the job, if you want something, care enough about it to show up the way you want to show up if you get it. You're not going to show up and act so blasé that you don't know what they do, you don't know what their mission is, you don't know how they behave on social media or what their biggest mission statement is or their biggest priority. So behave that way in an interview. And if someone gives you the chance to tell you why you should be there every day, there's no reason to not to just go as far as possible and dazzle them with how much research you've done, how much you care, and how what you bring is unique to all of what they need.
Mm-hmm. Right. Connecting the dots.
Exactly.
So when you do that research, you're like, oh, now I understand what they do. And here's how I can add value because of that, versus you kind of guessing that what you can do will add value.
Right. And I mean, if you look at my resume, I've worked for a conservation organization. I've worked for a tech company. I've worked for a trade magazine. I work for a public policy think tank now. I've written freelance. None of what I've done has been something that I went to school for. It's nothing that I studied, that I have deep, intricate knowledge of. But the skill set that I was able to build throughout college, in previous jobs, at College Magazine, for example, I knew how to say the things that I've already done are exactly what you need to do too. And it doesn't necessarily matter that I wasn't a genius or an expert on their subject area, but because I was a subject, I built myself up to be an expert on what I do best. I knew how to bring it to them and show how I was going to be an asset.
Yeah. Well, at College Magazine, I mean, you led a team of writers. So you were a leader and you oversaw these writers. You helped them become better writers. You sent them edits. You went through that process. So you knew how to lead a team, which is transferable to probably what you're doing today.
And it's no different too than leading the team there and saying, hey, this is a good story, but I'm not following it. It's no different than at any other job. There's always a story that needs to be told. And if you don't tell it the right way, someone's going to go somewhere else for it. And everything needs a good story. No one wants to just hear facts. They want to know why it matters to them or why they should care about it. And so when I was editing stories at College Magazine, or when I'm editing economic reports today, or helping write testimony, I have to think all the time about what the story is. There's always still that editor bone in me saying, okay, this is good, but how do we make it better? How do we tell the story so we meet people where they are?
Mm-hmm. Considering what your audience needs and what they want. Well, so tell me about a day in your life as the director of communications at the Bell Policy Center. What do you do? Break it down for me. What does that look like? You wake up, you go in, you check email. What's it like?
Yeah. So it's a little bit different based on the time of year. January to May is when Colorado's in legislative session. So a lot of my day is spent then managing our legislative priorities, figuring out what's on the docket, what's being heard, who's giving testimony, and making sure that our priorities are being communicated to all the different audiences in the way that they need to hear that message. So policymakers.
Let's break it down a little more. What are your policies? Like, what do you guys want to see happen?
For sure. So the Bell Policy Center is focused on economic mobility for every Coloradan. So what that means in layman's terms is basically ensuring that everyone can thrive. Right now, especially here in Denver, you're in San Diego. I'm sure there are people all across the country that are listening to this that can understand costs of living are insane. Healthcare is insane. Childcare costs are insane. Housing costs are insane. Workplaces are changing. You heard me just describe how many places I worked at one time while also looking for another job so I could have benefits and a salary that could sustain my life and help me pay student loans. And so we focus on trying to make sure that the public investments in our state are helping people thrive, that we're helping people be able to live the lives that they can, because they don't have to worry about, can I take care of my kid today because he's sick, but I can't take a day off of work because I don't have a paid sick day. Or I can't apply to college right now because I have to work and I can't afford to take on student debt. And so when I explain this to friends and family, without giving that super long spiel, I kind of say, does it cost you money and does it cause you stress? We're working to figure out how to make that easier.
That's awesome. Okay, so what do you get to do as the director of communications?
I get to work on all of the things that I personally care about. And I get to find out how to talk to people to make them care about it too. So during legislative session this year, we, for a long time, before I even came along, the Bell worked on a bill for retirement security to try and implement a plan that would offer a way for people who don't have a workplace retirement plan through their employer to start saving, that it automatically enrolls you, and you can opt out whenever you want, but to help make sure that people are actually saving, because right now people aren't. And retirement, I don't know if you know, is kind of not a sexy issue. People think it's only for old people and they don't like to hear about it. Again, I think I wrote an article about this, but at my previous job, talking about how retirement and 401k saving, that's a future Erin problem. And the reason why we keep thinking about that is because we have student loans, because our housing is so expensive, because healthcare is so expensive. We don't have extra money to just...
There's other pressing issues, but we need to be thinking about our future. And so you help people realize that they need to care about it today.
And so that was one of our main issues, was getting this bill passed. And we finally were able to pass it this year so that we could launch a study to ensure that the plan we are advocating for is the best way to ensure Coloradans can save more for retirement, that our plan is the best way. And spoiler alert, it is, because if it's an automatic and portable system that you can take with you from job to job and you're automatically enrolled, you're 15 times more likely to save. Fun fact.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I mean, you're making a difference. Like, your communication work is making a difference exponentially for all of these Coloradans. That's really cool.
And that's why I love what I do. I can see that return. And kind of back to your original question of what a day in the life looks like, January to May, legislative session. Last year, around this time is when we started gearing up for the 2018 election and kind of figuring out what our priorities were going to be. And push came to shove around like September, maybe September. And as a professional development excursion, I guess you could call it, I asked my boss, there was one ballot measure that was going to be bad for us and for the state of Colorado and for what our future looked like. And we wanted to put some pressure against it. And I asked my boss, I was like, hey, I want to run the opposition campaign. And it was a really low bar because, there wasn't going to be a lot of money. It definitely wasn't one of the flashier ballot measures. But I said, I want to try this. Let me do it. I want to try some stuff differently than what we see all the time, what all the consultants are doing, all the people who are getting paid to run ballot initiatives. I want to try something different. And I cannot tell you how exciting it was when I got my ballot to be able to bubble it in and be like, I worked on this. And one of my colleagues in our organization and a host of other organizations worked on Prop 111 to cap payday lending rates. And I mean, it far and away won in a landslide. I think it was 77% of Coloradans agreed on something. And to just see that we had that impact in, even peripherally, I had some impact, was amazing to feel and see. And so I really like being able to know that the work I do is influencing someone somewhere, even if it's just 2-3 people who decided to bubble yay instead of nay.
Yeah. Well, I love that you took that initiative and said, I want to run with this idea. And you obviously built trust over time that they wanted to give you that, responsibility and let you run with it.
Right. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said I I think the reason why I had that trust is because I came in with big ideas. In my interview for this job, I had no problem going in and being like, this is what you're doing wrong on your website. This is what you're doing wrong on social media. By the way, you guys have spelling errors everywhere. Like, let me come in and fix this. And
well, this goes back to one of your key values, right? Proving people wrong.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, and it was really fun on election night when I proved everyone wrong and my opposition campaign won, which is a really weird way to say, like, because it lost, I won. But
no, that's really cool though, because anyone that's voted before, they've seen these measures, right, on the ballot, and they know how confusing they can be. And
right.
Sometimes they're worded purposefully to confuse you.
Here in Colorado, that happens often. And so, yeah, it's actually another thing that I'm working on with a team of other partner organizations and communications folks, is about a measure we're looking at for 2020 to help reduce some of that confusing ballot language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we already know we're at, and like, that's kind of what's exciting right now in this period is the summers are pretty slow, or sometimes kind of slower. Whereas legislative session, I have to be really reactive. I have to be on my toes because even though you can plan as much as you want, but best laid plans, and so I get to be reactive and creative, and same with election season. And whereas summer, things move at a little bit of a slower pace. You can plan a little bit more, but we're already starting to try and figure out, okay, 2020 is a big year. We have, there's going to be a big Senate race here. There's obviously a presidential election. There's going to be a ton of things just Colorado specific on our ballot. And it's like, how do we cut through the noise for something that, one, people don't really know about, and two, because they don't know about it, they don't care about it. And so that's I get to be really creative and bounce ideas off people all the time, and get to hear from people who are brilliant and amazing communication strategists and storytellers and policy people. And we kind of get to riff off one another. And some of my best ideas have come because I've heard other people do this before. And I'm like, okay, like maybe let's try. Let's see what happens. Let's fail forward at the least.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you get to constantly be connecting with other talented communications people and learn from them. That's really nice that you get to have that network, and that's a big part of your role. Well, so I can feel the passion that you have for what you do. What does it feel like to get to work in your passion?
There are days that are difficult, just like any job, but there's just little moments. There's these big wins, like, an election season win. There's having a video that we collaborated on about the teacher strike go viral. Or having a major report that's the first of its kind be released, and being able to go to the Biden Institute to talk about middle class, about how the middle class is suffering in America. But I don't ever really feel true ownership over those, because it feels like I've worked so closely and so hard with other people that I don't want to take ownership of things that I was a part of, but that it took so many other people to make those things possible. And it makes me so proud that I get to be a part of the team. But when I feel most passionate, when I feel most excited, are these little moments that no one knows, that no one really sees. Like a couple of weeks ago, I came home and I told my significant other, I was like, I'm really good at my job. Today was a nice reminder of that. And it was something as simple as, my boss and I went back and forth about a press release we were going to send out. And he was like, no, this quote is too vague. It's, it's not clear enough. And I was like, no, that's great. It's going to be good because it's a little bit vague and it hints, and it's a little bit of a knife turn at some of our opponents, and people don't really know what we're saying, but some people will read between the lines. I was like, reporters are going to call us. And then he was like, I don't know. And I was like, let me try it. Just let me try it. And within minutes of it being sent out, I had a bunch of media requests being like, what were you talking about in there? What's going on?
Ooh, okay.
I was right.
You sparked the curiosity. What a great feeling. Yeah.
So, that was something I could truly own. Like, I did that. That was something that I proved someone wrong. And so the bigger pieces, I feel like I'm constantly a part of a team. And I love being able to say, yeah, I worked on this, but I so much credit goes towards the people who also are doing the work. And for me, it's seeing something that I came up with creatively, a problem that I wanted to solve in a new way, something that hadn't been done before, and seeing the results come back and even though someone else might not really notice it, I do. And I like to keep track of those and give myself a pat on the back every once in a while.
Yeah, I think it's so important to note your wins, and it doesn't necessarily have to be direct to you win, but it could be you were a visionary for something and you led a team in executing. I mean, it does take a team to make these big projects actually come to fruition. So, but that's just, to be part of it all. That sounds really exciting. Well, so tell me about the object you brought and how it reflects your passion.
So it's actually kind of great that I started talking about the ballot campaign in November so I brought blue suede shoes.
Okay.
So there's
nice.
My mom bought these for me a couple of Christmases ago because this probably leads back to her telling me that I look like a homeless ragamuffin most of the time. And so every Christmas I've always asked, I'm like, I need some business clothes. I need some work clothes so I look professional when I go to work. And so I started transitioning my entire wardrobe to like white and black and gray because I just like it. And I like having a very minimalist one. But I told my mom, but I was like, I don't want to lose too much of my edge. Like, probably can't tell, but I have purple hair. I have tattoos all over me. I've never been afraid to show them off. But I was like,
and for those who can't see Erin right now, if they're not watching the video, her nails have all these different colors. We've got red, blue, purple, yellow. They're so fun.
I did it for Pride Month. It's usually for black too.
I love it. Yeah, it's Pride. I think that's great.
But so I told my mom, I was like, but I want to have some really weird shoes. I was like, I want to have this very professional work attire, but I want people to remember, I want to look the part, but I still want to be me.
You want to put that Erin stamp on it.
Exactly. And so, so when I opened them on Christmas, I was so excited. My mom was so nervous. She's like, are you sure you like them? You're not just being nice. I was like, they're so cool. Like, I have such weird shoes. I was like, this is so great. And I wore them actually on election night because I had a black suit on, and I wore these shoes. And I wore them around all day and all night. And I walked all around Colorado all around Denver in them as I watched the election night results come in at, where at the Westin, where there was a lot of people watching the results come in. And it was really cool to be, I think everyone thought I was really, really drunk, but I was just really, really excited. And I was just, every time something came in, I have been wanting to be a part of campaign election season for so long, and to actually like see results come in for something I worked on and that I led on and that I was really passionate about was amazing. And a lot of people told me what I was doing was wrong with that, with the work that I was doing. I had a lot of people laugh at me and say, oh, if you'd done this before, you'd know better. Or like, no, this is not the way to do it. You're doing this wrong. You're not reading the polling right. You're not making the video right. You're not placing your money in ad buys in the right spot. And I stuck to what I wanted to do. And the results proved that doing things my way, like wearing blue shoes and having purple hair and having tattoos, that it works. And it's just a reminder that I'm passionate about proving people wrong and continuing to be myself, even if I have to show up a little bit professional too.
I love that. And the shoes will probably always serve as a reminder of that night.
Yes, and they do, and I love them. And now I had to throw out. I had election shoes before. I had American flag tennis shoes that I wore in 2016. And I was like, it's time to retire these ones. So I have some new election shoes.
Well, so since Erin is a past College Magazine editor, I have a special question from a current College Magazine editor, Alexa Soivayer. She's a freshman at University of Florida, and she wants to know, when writing at CM, did you see yourself going as far as you have? How did you overcome that overwhelming and anxious feeling that most students and graduates in this industry feel?
That's a really good question. Like I said, when I got the role at College Magazine as an editor, I feel like that's when it clicked. This might sound really cheesy, and I promise I'm not just saying this to you because I'm talking to you right now, Amanda. I still see that Facebook post reminder every year of back on the grind, I got a job at College Magazine. I feel like that's when I was reminded that it's going to work out, that singing one is the loneliest number and applying for jobs is maybe not the most effective way, but just, it's so cheesy to say, but like keeping the faith and like continuing to put yourself out there, it works, because there are plenty of times that I didn't think it would. And to deal with that kind of anxiety and that unknowingness of it, I think it's more just about telling yourself that you're not always going to be able to do what you want to do. You're not always going to be able to lead the way you want to lead, that you're going to have to do some things that aren't your favorite, that aren't the way you would do them, but you're going to learn how not to do it. And when you do get to the place where you get to make decisions, like kind of where I am now, you get to do it your way, and you get to say, no, I saw someone do this already. I'm tired of it. No, we're not going to do it. But I think what's also really important, which I still struggle with, I think, is reminding yourself that your passion and that anxiety are two sides of the same coin, because you're always going to have a little bit of imposter syndrome that maybe this is too big. Maybe I am wrong. But I mean, I didn't think what I'm doing now was going to be possible. I wanted to be a comms director by the time I was 30. I did it right after I turned 27. I wanted to vote for something, see something on the ballot that I worked on. And I already did that. And I get to do that again, maybe in 2020. It's hard to see, I think, when you're in the thick of it, when you're singing "One Is the Loneliest Number" in your bed while your roommate's gone. I think it's hard to see that it's going to work out. But I think when you're 5 years out, you're going to realize this is what working out looks like. And if I already did this, like, what gets to be the next step?
It is possible, but you have to take those steps intentionally initially and get your foot in the door and start getting that experience.
Exactly.
It sounds like you really just put yourself out there in the beginning, and that really is what it takes. There's a lot of anxiety because there's so much unknown.
And exactly. And I think for me, I didn't really have the benefit of doing anything but jumping in. Some of the career advice I would have for college students now is don't be afraid to pivot from like what you thought was your ideal, but also there's no shame in not buying the ticket, not taking the ride. I had so much FOMO in the years after I graduated. My friends were going to school, getting master's degrees, getting law degrees. They were traveling the world. They were spending all of their money to go to Spain and go to Rome and travel in Southeast Asia. And that was not there for me. And I felt really bad, like I missed out on this period of when I was supposed to be wild and crazy and awesome. But I've had so much fun getting to where I am. I've had so much fun figuring out what I'm good at and building up this life that I really enjoy what I do because I got to work as soon as I had to. And I had student loans to pay. I had a car payment. There was not time to dilly-dally and think about being anxious because it was time to get to work. And I could either get to work doing something that I kind of cared about, I was lukewarm about, but it's a job, or I could get to work doing something that I was at least excited about and was going to learn something about in this small area that I was going to take to the next job, which was a little bit bigger. That I was going to take to the next job, which was even bigger, and I had something else. I feel like I built up experiences through work that people reflect on those trips, and they reflect on their graduate degrees, which I would love to have. I would have loved that. But I reflect on my job experience, I feel like the same way people look back on those amazing backpacking trips, which sounds really lame, but I really like work.
No, but I think you can like work. I do think it's possible. That's the whole impetus for this podcast, is to show listeners, to show you guys that when you can identify what it is that you're passionate about, and you can create these experiences for yourself like you did at College Magazine. And I'm so happy to hear like what you said about your experience at College Magazine and the kind of the confidence that it gave you, and how it validated that this was something that you loved, and
right.
and you felt it even more by doing the experience. I think that's so important, and that's what I want the experience to be. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go right out the gate and get that dream publication or the 1% brand, because it's just sometimes the timing. You could be the most qualified writer or editor, but sometimes the timing of things doesn't match up. And really it does matter who you know. You need someone to vouch for you that knows someone that is there. And so in order to build up those connections, you need to start somewhere where you're at. And I would say for everyone listening today, take a note from what Erin's saying and hustle just like she did, but putting her message out there. So how do you actually do that? I mean, I think today, if you could start speaking your passion to just one person today that is, a little bit outside of your comfort zone, like she did with the person that she was nannying for, of course, speak your passion to your friends. But what if you spoke your passion to, one of your professors or your advisor or a friend of a friend or someone's parent or their friend, someone that you meet in your daily life as you're going about your day? Could you speak your passion, step outside of that comfort zone and see what happens? Because people will want to connect you.
That's also actually what you just said is an amazing thing I read the other day that I've started trying to implement in my own life. Is so often when we meet new people, we say, oh, what do you do for a living? Or where did you go to school? And I've learned that can be, what I read said that can sometimes be off-putting for people who aren't where they want to be, who are in jobs that aren't their favorite, or maybe who didn't go to do the traditional 4-year school, that it can make them feel lesser than. And so they said, instead of doing that, ask people what they're passionate about doing. Ask how they spend their time and what they like to do, and start conversations there. Because while I do love my work, I didn't always. Jobs don't define us, but the things that we're passionate about do. And I've just been lucky enough, and I hustled enough, and I applied to enough jobs that what I was passionate about got to align with what I do.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. So remember, everyone, not only should you be speaking your passion, but ask other people, what are they passionate about? Oh, I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Erin.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening in. If you like what you hear, if you feel inspired, please reach out, Amanda at findyourpassioncareer.com. And you can submit a question on the website. I really appreciate you guys listening. I hope that you will leave a review, because every review helps us become more found. And I just hope that you remember, when you speak your passion, doors open.